people that are willing to try out a Bricasti will find that there are some advantages in the workflow, and that comes down to how quickly you can get sounds, which I think is the ultimate goal.
Sure, I mean,
it's at least a very valid trade-off. I'll put it that way.
To say the least. I mean, we were talking earlier about how I'm kind of like a Bricasti preset user,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of us are. I mean, it sounds so good immediately. I mean, if you dial in a hall or a room or whatever, you put yourself in the vicinity of what you think you're going to be looking for, and it's sort of like you dial up the aux bus and you hear the reverb come in, and it's sort of like such a pleasant surprise to hear it sound so natural, so real, preserve so much of that detail, and not really feel like I need to spend the rest of my afternoon going to the edit menu and fixing the problem.
Well, and it goes beyond that too, because people aren't used to the idea of getting the sound so quickly, is that now we've got the 4 favorites buttons on the front of it, and a lot of people, are just going through and saying, like they try out different mics for things. Well, they can say, well, I like this one, I like this one, I like this one, and without doing anything other than just storing it like a radio button, you just hold it down and it'll remember it. So you can put up 4 candidates for what you might like to hear, and very quickly just go through those on the various tracks or things that you're working with, and make an aesthetic judgment long before you may have even gotten one.
Yeah.
On a system that required you to tweak to sort of get around artifacts
and plugins as well. I mean,
well, I don't even make any distinction there, because
right.
all of these algorithms, whether they be hardware or software, they have artifacts that have been in them for years and years
until now.
And that was the first thing. It took me 4 years to develop the first Bricasti algorithm, which is ridiculous.
It's
right?
dedication.
Well, it's not so much dedication. It's a wife willing to help pay the bills, and the willingness to sell off everything that you own so that she could continue working on this stuff. But that's the reality, and I guess where a lot of us are as far financially. But the joy of it was that I knew. I'll tell you what I give. The person I give credit to is Brian, because Brian, who is really much more involved than I am with all of the again, Brian's my partner in the business, the other half of Bricasti. He's out there and he's telling all of his buddies that he's known for 20 years all over the world, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. We're going to have this best ever. And neither of us heard any of it for 3 years. I mean, we were sitting there working on this stuff, maybe 2.5 years. But Brian's faith and trust was the most amazing thing to me. That he was willing to go out on the line like that.
I said at the beginning, I was a complete skeptic. I didn't even really want to hear the device, and I know that there are people out there that are probably thinking the same thing, that hardware reverb,
Yeah.
but the reality is, I mean, I don't know, it's come so far in the world of reverb and what you guys have been able to create. I just don't see anyone catching up for a very, very long time.
Well, I almost don't even look at it as catching up. I mean, I think that we try to do things that advance the state of the art, and I think the world needs a lot of people doing that. So there's nothing there. There was certainly a lot of competitive spirit. I mean, I remember the first time talking about this at an AES, it was a long time ago, and I'll say it, the TC guys all came up and pointed and laughed and said, what the hell are you building a new reverb box for? That's just a waste of time. And it's like, so those kinds of things were very motivational.
Yeah.
And so you're right. There's that competitive spirit there. I've worked on more important things before. I worked on lots of medical visualization products that have saved lives. And my wife is she works in the field of cardio resuscitation, everything involved with resuscitating someone that's died, that's already dead, and bringing him back to life. And we met at HP Medical, but that's now Philips Medical. But it's an amazing area. So you look at these kinds of things, you think, well, you know, this for me is really, and for Brian too. I mean, we sat down and said, you know, the first week we got together on this, you know, what are our core values and how do we see ourselves? And it's like, well, I really see myself sitting on the side of the hill, looking down at a vineyard of grapes that, you know, that we've inherited and that we've tried to improve on, and we're making wine with it. And if people come in and they like the wine, then, you know, we've done something really good. And but that's no more than that, you know. And you know, it's easy to say. It sounds like, you know, you're way up here on Maslow's triangle or something, looking down. But you know, there is the cost of the system, and you know, bringing it full circle to kind of how we opened up with talking about it's, you know, is it accessible technology or not? It's really hard to say. I mean, you're talking about something where you say, well, it makes a big difference in my studio, and I you know, I truly believe that that's a widely held belief for people that like it. I mean, obviously there's people that don't like it, but for people that are finding it useful in their studios, is, well, you know, geez, I really want to buy another one, or you know, I really do find this you know, is to be one of my primary tools. So you know, it's you're sitting there and you're selling a, you know, it's really a luxury product, I guess, in a way. But if it's something that people find that they like the taste of and they want to come back and talk with us about it, or buy some more, I mean, that's really Brian and I's our whole point of view really was to try to do something outside of the very high pressure, sort of get a new product out and churn out new products, or push products on people really hard to make a quarter or something. I guess you see that more and more with people that are in the you know, trying to make great tools of all sorts for audio engineering. It's really truly a love and a passion, and you know, you look at whether or not it's something that's viable for you to bring into a studio to try out, knowing that if you like it, it's going to be, you know, a very expensive hit to your budget. You know, I would say talk to somebody that has one if you can. You know, I think what we've seen is the more that we get out there, the more interest and more sales that we get, and more repeat business too. You know, that's always very gratifying.
Well, I love the wine analogy because I often think of it like that. You know, a cheap wine will often turn on you on the finish very, very quickly. And
I guess so.
the Bricastis, that finish everyone dreams about, that lasts forever and doesn't ever sour. It's just sort of always there. And I mean, you guys have really, really nailed it. And I just want to thank you for coming here to Soundpure to spend the time with us. And it's been a real pleasure.
My pleasure. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.